So it is a beautiful sunny Sunday morning here in Dublin, and I am going to try and do something that is probably not going to go so well, and that is I am going to attempt to record 3 different videos today. So because it's a Sunday and the city is relatively quiet first thing in the morning, it's kind of a good opportunity to get some stuff recorded, so we'll see what happens. What I have in mind is I'm doing another episode of my Street Photo Diary series. So people have been asking me about the Sony a6000, and I did a video a while ago about it where I did a Street Photo Diary series on it, and lots of people were wondering about what lenses I use and what lenses are good for that camera for street photography, so that is one of the videos I'm going to do today. And the second thing I want to talk about is I am going to try and do some audio recording. So I brought my little Zoom recorder with me. I have this idea for a project where I kind of wanted to do a thing where we could see kind of what it would be like to record soundscapes. So almost like what would photography be like for people who can't see, or for visually impaired people. Yeah, it's something I want to try, but I also want to record some audio just kind of to have as kind of stock for when I'm doing these kind of videos, so I can I have stock audio I can use to make the sound a little better. And then the third thing I am recording is this video, which is kind of a behind the scenes vlog about the whole thing, so it's a 3-in-1, as we say. So here at the moment I am in Dublin's Ivy Gardens. I always like to start in a park because it's nice and quiet, although there are people sunbathing, they probably don't like me talking. But unfortunately the grass is really burnt here because the heat wave we've been having the last few days, actually the last few weeks, and they're starting to get a bit concerned now about the lack of water, and nobody's been able to water their grass, so all the grass is dying, and apparently crops are starting to fail now as well. I know there's been like severe heat waves in other parts of the world which are much hotter than here, but the problem here is because it's such a small country and because we never get this kind of thing, we actually just don't have the infrastructure to deal with it. So while it mightn't seem like much of a problem to most people in other parts of the world, it's actually it's starting to be kind of an issue here now. So everyone's kind of praying for rain. Of course, Irish people are hilarious when it comes to the weather anyway. We always go on about the weather. So normally it's raining during summer and everyone's complaining about the rain, and this year we actually have a really good summer and it's really hot and warm and everyone's complaining about the heat. You can't win. It is hot though. Anyway, moving on. So people have also been asking me how I make these videos, so I'm going to try and do a little bit behind the scenes as well with this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have to actually find somewhere relatively quiet so I can do kind of the intro piece for the a6000 lenses test. And the lenses I'm going to be using for this, incidentally, are the 2 Sigma lenses that I have, which is the 30mm and the 19mm, which are both good lenses. Anyway, on to find a good location. Trying to find somewhere relatively shaded that's not too loud, but everywhere I go there seems to be something like traffic, or in this case there's a bloody breeze blowing. Okay, I'm gonna end up in the park again. At least I'm getting some exercise. Wow, the city's busy today. I can't find a quiet spot anywhere. Even all the places I normally go are mad busy. Lots of tourists around. Oh, it's a great thing for the city, I suppose. Can't complain. In a previous episode of Street Photo Diary, I was talking about shooting with the Sony a6000, and a couple of people asked me about lenses for this camera and for shooting street photography. So I finally managed to find somewhere quiet enough for long enough to record the intro piece for the Street Photo Diary video I'm trying to do. Because the problem is, we're shooting with the G7X, you've no idea whether the sound recorded or not. So anyway, here we go. So the next part of the process is I'm going to put the GoPro on the Sony a6000 and start recording, start trying to shoot some street photography and see how we get on. Wind, seagulls. I really need a better audio solution because that's kind of half my problem is I can't actually record audio right now because I just know it's not going to come out. There goes a bus. Just when the wind stops, the bus goes by. So one of the problems I'm having trying to record these videos today is, whoa, apart from pigeons, one of the problems I'm having recording is because the light is really harsh. I can only really record in shade, and even then it's kind of problematic, so we'll see how it turns out. So now I'm trying to find somewhere quiet to do the wrap up, and we have the same problem again. I make it sound like these videos are a disaster and everything goes wrong all the time. That's not true. What I find really funny though is when I was in London, which is a much busier city, it was actually much easier to find a quiet spot to record in. So weird that. This is going to get loud again. Okay, finally got the end piece recorded. Now I can go on to the second thing I wanted to do today, which is trying to record some audio. So let's go. And then it actually doesn't matter if it's loud because that's kind of the point. I'm probably not actually going to do much more anyway. I'm just going to actually experiment today and see if this technique will actually work or not. I'm kind of tired now and most of my batteries are gone, so I've been going for a while now, so my idea of getting lots of videos done in one day is probably not going to pan out the way I had planned.
Allora, però se la porto like it's very different.
Okay, so once I have shot everything, the next step is to bring everything into the computer and have all the parts ready, and then I'll bring that into Final Cut Pro where I'll do all the editing. So the first part of the process is processing the photos themselves, and the reason I do this first is because that's going to kind of make my editing decisions as well as to what clips I use, and especially from the shots from the GoPro, because I'm only going to use the bits that I'm actually going to use images for. So I go through the photos and decide which ones I'm going to use, do any processing necessary on them in Lightroom, and then export them, and then I can then take them from there into Final Cut Pro along with all the other footage. So then we do a bit of editing and then the whole thing will come together. Okay, so I am in Final Cut Pro now. This is FCPX, and I am. So I've done kind of the basic first edit, so it's a rough cut. So I still need to kind of trim things up and do the finishing touches, such as adding the grade and stuff like that. But what I wanted to show you was, and this is kind of a key part of the way I do my videos. So I have GoPro footage here, which needs to be cleaned up. So this is basically the camera's point of view. So what I like to do is then put the stills over that. Now if you've seen on any of my other videos, you'll know that I have an effect where it's kind of a flash and then the still slowly zooms in. So how I created that is I actually created that in Apple's Motion. And one of the cool things about Final Cut Pro and Motion is you can save a Motion project with placeholders that you can bring straight into Final Cut, and you basically make your own effects. So that's what I have done. So I'm going to drop this on here now. I have a second monitor connected, by the way, which you can't see, and I'm not going to try and record both because that'll just kill this computer. So basically this is what I have, and that's a drop zone. So if we look up here, you can see I have the drop zone. So all I have to do now is drop a still into that. So let me just do that. So this can be a little tricky sometimes. So I drop the seal into this, and I have these controls here as well. Now I made all this. I made all these controls. You do this as part of the motion project. So these are the options that I wanted. So I can control the overall scale, and everything else is built into it. So the flash, as at the start, is built into it, and it will also it'll also scale. So if I drag this, everything will scale. The timing will scale, so I don't have to kind of adjust keyframes or anything like that. So it makes it really easy to assemble this kind of really fast. So that is basically how I do the image zooms. Everything else is fairly straightforward. It's just a basic edit. So that's just one little thing I want to show you as part of the editing process. I'm kind of proud of this. It seems fairly straightforward, but it's actually saves an awful lot of hassle, because otherwise I would have had to build this up. I would have had to have keyframes that you would have to adjust each time if I wanted to adjust the duration of this. So I can adjust the duration of this, and the zoom will still go at the same rate, and the flash and everything would have had to be in a separate layer, and moving them all around would have been tricky. So by creating this in Motion as a template, it's just saved me a lot of hassle. Okay, so I have the main edit done now, and basically all I'm doing now is putting the finishing touches on it. So I'm kind of tidying up the grade, and then I'm going to have a few graphics to do for it, and that'll be pretty much it. Then all I have to do is upload it to YouTube and come up with a cover image for it. One thing I like about shooting with the 19mm is the extra little bit of field of view. The editing process actually takes an awfully long time, so this 10-minute video, better part of a day to edit. No, I'm not the best editor in the world, so obviously there's people who will do it much quicker than me. But anyway, the hardest part of this process I find is grading the GoPro footage, because the GoPro does automatic white balance. The colour is kind of generally all over the place, and it's actually quite hard to fix. And I've tried putting it on manual white balance, and that just doesn't bloody work either. So that's what takes up most of my time. But I'm nearly there. So once I have this finished, just a few more things to do then. Graphics wise, I will be using After Effects just to kind of do a few little extra bits over it. I generally like to have little notes and stuff that I write onto the screen, and then there's the title sequence as well. Okay, so that's the After Effects work done, and that's all the graphics, so I just have to put them in, and then we're done. Bye. Oh, and one more thing, the most important thing you have to do before uploading is make sure you watch it through so that there's no mistakes or anything in your video. This is the one thing that I learned from years of working in television, and it's the one thing that you'd be surprised how many people actually don't do. And that's pretty much it done. So all I do now is upload it and put all those captions and everything onto it in YouTube, and that is how I make one of these videos. So I hope you found this useful, and I hope that gives you a better idea as how I put these things together. So there's not really that much to it, but it's an interesting process overall, I think, anyway. And don't forget to check out the finished video itself. It is Street Photo Diary 7, and you will see it in the links below. Okay, thanks again, and see you next time.